Welcome to Whippoorwill Holler. I'm Miss Lori, and this is Mr. Brown. We live in the hills of Arkansas. We love the Lord. Keepers of the old ways, but accept some of the new. We love to cook, and we love to eat. We love to garden. It's in our blood. It's how we stay sustainable and fill our pantry. We do a lot of canning and preserving. We live a sustainable life. We love our family. We work hard. And every once in a while, we like to dance. So y'all join us. Okay, so we're going to be making some sweet Vidalia cornbread. And I've got some Vidalia onions here, and they're just anywhere from a small to a medium. And I got these at Walmart. They're pretty good Vidalias. I know they're not as good at Vidalia than if I was there in the heart of where they grow the best Vidalias. But this is the best we can get here. I didn't grow any Vidalias this year, but I did grow, it is a sweet onion, but it's not a Vidalia. But these right here I've had in the pantry, and I'm wanting to use them up. And you can see how I leave the root end on, and that does help from tearing me up. Even though it's a sweet onion, it can still make you cry. So cut these in kind of a thicker slice. And right there's the root end, and I'll get that root off. And I just want to have enough to, because we're going to be baking this in a 9 by 13. So I want my onions to cover the whole bottom of my 9 by 13 baking dish. And what I'm going to be using is a 9 by 13 glass baking dish. Set your oven to 400. And first thing we're going to do is, after we get these onions done, I think that's plenty to put on the bottom. I'm going to get my 9 by 13 dish. Pretty sure that it's down here. Yes. I've got a pot. Oops, I've got a pot back here on the stove. Then I'm making a pot of vegetable soup. And that's what we're having tonight. No meat. I opened up several jars of vegetables out of the pantry. A few frozen things that I had in the freezer. And we're completely eating out of our freezers this month, for sure. And which we don't buy a lot anyways from the grocery store. But when I come in at night, I go to my freezers, my pantry, and I just start pulling things out, or I do it first thing in the morning. And that's what we're going to be doing. No grocery stores. Except for, you know, necessity stuff. So I got a stick of butter in here, and I'm using unsalted, because this is unsalted sweet cream butter. My cornbread will have salt in it, so I just think that's plenty of salt. I always keep unsalted and salted. So anyways, I'm going to put this in a 400-degree oven and let this butter melt. And then I'm going to layer my onions on the bottom of this pan. We're going to stick it in the oven at 400 and let the onions cook probably about 15 to 20 minutes. I'm not for sure yet, but we'll see where they're at that point. And while those are cooking, we'll mix our cornbread up. And this is going to be delicious with our vegetable soup. Well, I've also with this pot of soup back here on my stove. After we make our cornbread, our sweet Vidalia cornbread, I'll talk about what I threw in the pot back here. But this video is centered around this cornbread. That's just extra. So we'll talk about that last. And it's just a simple throw together what's in your freezer, what's in your pantry, and no meat. So I try to do maybe 1 to 2 meals a week with no meat. Mr. Brown's a big meat eater, so, you know, I have to be careful and just really, you know, like soups and stuff like that, he's fine with no meat in it. So, anyways, but I want to show y'all what I'm going to be making my cornbread out of today. Now, a lot of y'all use the Jiffy cornbread mix in the little box, and I think it's an 8.5. I may be mistaken on that. But what you'll use is 3 boxes of those. But what I'm going to be using is my favorite self-rising buttermilk cornmeal mix. And when they call this the cornmeal mix, it's because it's got the cornmeal, it's got your little bit of flour in it, it's got your baking powder, your salt, it's got all that already in it, so you don't have to, you know, add all that to it. But I also make my cornbread out of course, when I grind my own corn, or if I already have it bought, I'll just use regular cornmeal, and I'll use my flour and mix it up myself. But I also keep this on hand because this is just so easy, you know, when you're a busy person, to come in and know that, you know, all you got to do is whip up some cornbread pretty quick. And I keep them in my big jar like this. And I always keep a lot of this on hand. In fact, I've got a bin back here in my pantry, and that's, when I say I get low, I always buy at least about 4 or 5 more and throw them in my bin so that I always have them. And people say, well, how do you keep the weevils and stuff out? Because the bin I have is in my Amazon store down below in my information box, and I buy a bin that has a really good rubber seal around the edge, and then when you put that lid down and you can clamp it tight, there's nothing going to get in there. Plus I keep bay leaves in there with it too. But so I've never had any issues with that. But you can put it up any way you would rather do. So all we're going to do is mix up. Now I got my 9 by 13 baking dish in the oven at 400, and I'm melting that 1 stick of butter. So we're going to make our cornbread. And what I got here is, I've got a 1/2 cup measuring device here. So I'm going to do 3 cups of the self-rising cornbread mix. So that's 1. That's 2 cups. And that is 3 cups, more or less. I buy these old jars like this at yard sales. I've had people give them to me, flea markets and stuff like that. And even a lot of them come with the old lids that come with it. And that's just fine with me. Okay, so we got 3 cups in here. Now, I just have 1 cup of milk, but I may have to add more. So in your cornmeal mix, just like this, you already have the stuff that leavens your cornbread. You got your baking powder, your salt, and all that already in here. So, and if you're using a Jiffy, you don't have to add any of that either. But if you're using your own ground cornmeal, you're going to use 2 cups of cornmeal, 1 cup of flour, all-purpose flour, or you can use 2 cups of cornmeal and 1 cup of self-rising flour. But I would still go ahead and add about a teaspoon. I would add 1.5 teaspoons or 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I would add a teaspoon of salt to it. So I'll have that down in the information just in case y'all want to just make your own and not use the cornmeal mix. But this is my favorite, y'all. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put my cup of milk in here. And I've got 3 eggs in my little cup. Now, because we're using a cup of sour cream, you're not going to have to put oil in here. But remember, we've got a stick of butter in our pan. This may be a little bit more than a cup, but I'm wanting to get rid of this. I need to use it up. It's about to go out of date. So, I'm going to mix this up a little bit. I hope y'all have had a wonderful weekend. We had a relaxing Sunday. Me and Mr. Brown was just pretty tired by the time Sunday got here. But we're back this week, back to school. We was back last week. I think that's why we were so tired. The first week's always the hardest. But we're starting to get back in the groove of being in school. So that cup of milk was plenty of milk. You just never know. And you can use buttermilk too if you want to. So, we got our milk, we got our eggs, and our sour cream. Sour cream always makes cornbread so moist and so good. Now all we're going to do now is, I've got about a cup of shredded cheese here. Now, if you want to, you could add you some jalapenos in here, bell peppers or something like that. But this cornbread is centered around the Vidalia onions. And I think that's going to be so good, that cornbread with them Vidalia onions and this homemade soup. So sometimes you just don't need all them different ingredients, and sometimes you do. And this is just that time that I just don't want it all. I just want it to be simple and good. I'm just going to kind of fold this cheese in. Now, you can make a version of this too, and I'll show you how I'm going to layer my onions in the bottom of my dish. You can have bacon too, and layer it with your onions for the bottom of that cornbread, which will be the top of your cornbread too once you turn it out, or cut you a piece. So you would cook you probably, I don't know, at least a half a pound, if not a pound of bacon. Depends on how much bacon you like. Cook it up, get it good and crispy, and now if you're gonna, since we're gonna cook the onions though, I would say that your bacon would get done with it too, so you'd be good there. Just break it up in smaller pieces, then your bacon will get done, if you want to add bacon to it. But probably what I would do is I would go ahead, like we're fixing to do, and cook the onions before we add our cornbread mix. And then before I added my cornbread mix, I'd put my crispy bacon down on top of my onions. That's probably the way I would do that. Okay, so we got that all mixed up, looking good. Save my bags. Good knife there. I'm going to look and see. Yeah, my butter's good and melted. My oven, still got a little heating up to do. And I'm still learning this oven. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. I'm going to check my soup. It's a simmering. I'm going to get my homemade little pot holders here that were made for me. I have a bunches of these and I just love them. Okay. Ooh, my butter's starting to brown a little bit. You hear it popping. Woo, stop your popping. Stop your popping. Now, I'm going to do this without burning myself. I'm just going to layer these onions just like this. Ooh, stop, stop, stop. Be very careful of that. So just layer your onions. You know, one of the worst burns I think I've ever had was cooking in the school cafeteria kitchen. And of course we always had them big pots that we always cooked everything in. And I lifted a lid without putting the glove on. And when I did, that steam come up and it burnt all these fingers. And I'm telling you, a steam burn, if y'all have ever had one, it hurts so bad. That was one of the worst ones. So I'm just going to get as much of this onions in here as I can. I might have some left. Stick it down in there. Because we're fixing to stick this back in the oven. Because I want these onions to cook before I put my cornbread mix on top. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Just layer it on there. Because these onions are going to brown up, cook up just a little bit. Okay, we're going to stick this back in the oven. It's getting on up there to 400. So, I'm going to let that cook probably about 15 minutes and then I'm going to check them. And if they're just not soft enough for me and getting brown enough yet, I might go another 5 minutes. I'll show y'all my soup and I'll tell you what I threw in there. Our soup is simmering. Now, for the base of my soup here, I opened up a pint jar of my tomato juice that I put up last year. Let's see, I put in here about 6 ounces of tomato paste. I put a couple cups of vegetable broth. Now you can use beef broth if you want to, but I had vegetable broth and I wanted to use it. And once I got that in there, I cut me up some, probably a good cup and a half of fresh okra out of the garden, and I threw it in there. And then I let the okra boil for about 10 minutes, softened it up a little bit, and then I opened up a pint jar of my lima beans and a pint jar of my navy beans, and then I had a bag of vegetable mix in the freezer. I put salt and pepper, garlic, onion powder. I put some of my thyme out of the garden. So I got carrots on. The only thing I don't have in here is potatoes, but I've got plenty of beans, lima beans. Now you could add a handful of dry macaroni in this. That would be good, but we're strictly going to do vegetable soup tonight with our cornbread. And I tasted this and it tastes really good. I put just a little bit of sugar in it, brown sugar, just to cut the acidity, and it gives it a richness. But you put the amount of garlic and onion powder and salt and pepper and taste it. Put your little thyme in it. I even put a little bit of sweet paprika in it. You can put a little bit of smoky paprika in it if you like paprika. And just anything like that. Just add what you like. So this is going to be a wonderful meal tonight with our sweet Vidalia cornbread. And there'll probably be enough left for Mr. Brown to take some of this soup and cornbread for his lunch tomorrow at work. And maybe me too. Okay, I let my onions cook probably about 12 minutes. I let them get good and brown. And they're real tender. So now we're going to put in our cornmeal mix over the top.
And they smell delicious, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
I love it.
You may have to push some onions back down. They're going to want to try to come up the side. All that butter, onions.
Man.
Smelling good, isn't it? Could you smell the onions when you come in?
Yes.
I'm just going to kind of push them back down the side there. And like I said, after I took out them onions, you could have sprinkled you some crispy bacon on top of that before you put your cornmeal on top. Okay, we're going to put this back in the oven, 400-degree oven, and I'm going to check it here in about 20 minutes. Here it is out of the oven. It took about 20 minutes for it to cook through and through. It may take a little bit longer in your oven. You can see how the onions on the bottom caramelized. Some of them got a little bit dark, but that's to be expected. But look how good that looks. Sweet Vidalia cornbread. Steam coming out of that cornbread. So like it's hot.
I can eat stuff pretty hot. Yummy.
Is that good cornbread?
Yes.
That onion cooked like that. Cheese in it. I told him you could even put a little bacon down there with them onions too.
That's actually delicious, that cornbread, too.
It is.
Just by itself, even without the soup, it's good.
Good stuff.
Of course, I'm an onion. Look at there. I like onions, but...
So y'all try this recipe. It's Mr. Brown approved. It's good stuff. If you like onions, Vidalia onions, if you just have, they don't have, you know, just a sweet onion. If you just have a yellow onion, if you don't mind the bite of it, then use it. It's good stuff. Be good with a good bowl of chili or anything, wouldn't it?
The good news is an onion that's got a bite, when you saute them down, they don't bite as much.
They don't bite as much, do they? So if y'all like this recipe, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Y'all come back and see us. We'll be back in a couple of days. Soup is good any time of the year. It's a good thing to make when you just need to go in your pantry or freezer and just start throwing stuff in a pot. Have you gotten a bite of that good garden okra yet?
Yep.
Good stuff.
Right there, see it?
Yeah. We'll see y'all in a couple of days, guys. God bless everybody.